Good afternoon, everybody. It's a great honor to me to welcome you all in this one-day international event organized by the Physics Department of BB College, Asansol. At the very outset, on behalf of the organizing committee, I'd like to express my sincere thanks to our people whose indefatigable support is the gateway to the initiation of this scientific program. We are all thankful to our speakers who, sitting at a long distance from us, decided to share a couple of hours from the tight schedule. I'm not going to elongate this lecture as it is a time-bound program. Today we have two speakers. One of them is related to our department in more than one sense. And the topic is also very relevant to the present day situation of spreading COVID-19 in our country. We are all justly waiting to listen from them. Last but not least, I'd like to express my sincere thanks and gratitude to the organizers of this webinar to allow me to deliver this talk as the chairperson of this meeting. Thank you for your attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, our beloved AKM sir. We have enriched ourselves with your deep sense and delightful lecture, which paves ourselves to the webinar. We, the people of physics, always looking for mathematics in all happenings, since mathematics is the language of all theoretical physics. Naturally, in this one-day international webinar, mathematical modeling obviously is in the central position. Now it's time to introduce our beloved alumnus of our college and also our department, Honorable Dr. Sayantori Ghosh, Assistant Professor, Department of Physics, NIT Durgapur. May I request our faculty member and my beloved brother and Joint Secretary of this one-day international webinar, Dr. Kaushik Mukherjee, to introduce her officially and request her to deliver her precious lecture involving this pandemic situation. Dr. Mukherjee, please proceed.
Good afternoon to everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible. Please.
Okay. Thank you for giving me such an opportunity to introduce Dr. Sayantori Ghosh, Assistant Professor, Department of Physics, National Institute of Technology, Durgapur. And it is a privilege for us to have such an speaker who is also an alumnus of Banawarilal Bhalotia College and university rank holder. After that, she studied in Jawaharlal Nehru University, Bose Institute and IIT Delhi for pursuing her MSc and researches. And presently, she is working at NIT Durgapur, and her research interests are complex systems dynamics and statistical physics. And now on this present webinar, she will talk about understanding and predicting epidemic dynamics. As we all know that mathematical models have long been associated with the study of infectious diseases and diffusion dynamics. In this talk, the speaker will discuss different modeling strategies that can individually associate tunable parameters with several practical factors like population density, testing efficiency, public awareness, healthcare facility, general immunity, etc., which are implicit to the dynamics and can contribute in understanding country-specific variability. So I will request from the organizing committee, on behalf of the organizing committee, to please to deliver her resourceful lecture on these topics, I shall request Dr. Sayantari Ghosh. Thank you.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, well,
Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
you are audible. You are audible.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks a lot for such a nice introduction. I feel awesome to, this kind of opportunity to come back at your own institute and talk about what we are doing for last 10, 15 years. That feels great. So let me just share my screen and just let me know if you can see it, okay?
Yes, yes. You can share. No problem.
Is my screen visible to you all?
Yes, yes. It is visible. No problem.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so let me start my presentation today. I'm going to talk about, as you mentioned, the title of my talk today is Understanding and Predicting Epidemic Dynamics. Before I start, I want to, I think many of our students are here, students of BB College are here. So I'd like to share some of my college days pictures to just show that those were the days that I sent there. So I started from the very classrooms where you are sitting nowadays. These were some awesome days which actually motivated me to pursue more, figure out more about myself and learning about exploring more in theoretical physics. After that, I moved on doing my MSc and PhD. And nowadays, I work with complex systems and statistical physics. So today, I am going to specifically talk about the pandemic that has overwhelmed us all, COVID-19. So as you all know that the disease is COVID-19, and it is caused by the virus which is called SARS-CoV-2. That is the virus. It's a novel virus. And starting from somewhere in a small place in China, it is affecting right now 213 countries, approaching almost 1 crore infections all around the world, approaching a death toll of 5 lakhs, which we really cannot ignore in any logic. So if we want to look at this thing that is happening and overwhelming the entire world, the question that comes into our mind is, can we predict such a dynamics? There are so much complexity associated with whatever is happening there, right? The virus itself is novel. So whatever its immunity to people are not there, it has a much more highly infectious properties. And there are also some hospital-acquired infections, some fomite-related infections. Fomites are simply whatever some infected person has sneezed on or coughed on. Those things are called fomites. It might have also been airborne. And moreover, there are variabilities among the population that is being affected. It is affecting from China to US. The immunity, the age, the vulnerability of different people are all different. There are questions of asymptomatic infections as well. Some people who don't have some symptoms, but they are also capable of infecting others. We have testing kits which are confusing efficiency and accuracy sometimes. Healthcare facility in different healthcare facilities in different countries are different, and the timescales at work are also different. So what we need to understand such a complex dynamics is that we need to develop a quantitative model, a model using mathematics and computation. So how do we make a model using mathematics and computation? And this is the theory that I work on, that is called dynamics of complex systems. So complex systems is basically, you can imagine it like a big machinery where different levers and different gears are connected in such a way that if one moves, the other thing also moves. So everything, when a large system is coupled to each other, you cannot really segment them, that this is where one system ends and here this is where the other system starts. You call them a complex system. So it's kind of a crude look at the whole. This is a very good book by John Wickler that you can have a look if you have want to have some idea of what complex system means. It simply means that there would be lots and lots of feedbacks and a huge kind of dynamics gets coupled to each other. It's like collective behavior. It's like voting. How when voting happens, how do people decide? How do we take these collective decisions? It's like pattern formation. That how on nature scale, how these beautiful patterns emerge out, evolution, networks, social networks that are so common nowadays. How does these things work? The big systems that are coupled to each other in a very intricate way. So I work in this field, and basically this is an attempt of complex system scientists is to explain the systems like which are complicated, like ecosystems, climate, weather, living cells, social systems, financial systems, strategies, explain them in terms of mathematics and computation. So this is what we do. So today, what am I going to talk about is I'll specifically focus on this pandemic dynamics from the perspective of a complex system scientist. And I will try to convey as simple as I can. I will try to convey three ways to model mathematically or computationally model this pandemic dynamics. So for students, I would like to say, don't really understand that what means by model something mathematically. It simply means that like you create a small electronic circuit and you try to understand and predict something bigger, something like that only, just in terms of equations and programs. So I guess you can all listen to me clearly. Is it okay?
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. So why do we develop a model? So for an infection model, the goals will be following. We will try to understand that how the transmission is occurring and how people are getting infected. And we try to predict and interpret the data that we have. And we also will try to guide the collection of data and figure out the key determinants that are actually driving this entire dynamics. So this is kind of gives you a future direction to forecast an epidemic. So this is what we will try to do. So the simple and most common way to understand epidemics is by using differential equations. So for all of our students, we all know differential equations. We are dealing with them in school days, and I will only talk about first order differential equations. We'll only talk about first order differential equations. And if you have any confusion related to this slide, I will like to I would like to ask you that please clarify your doubts in your head before we can proceed, because this is an important thing that we are going to discuss. So how do we model a dynamics using differential equations? Okay, so for a system where you have some infected people, or you can consider any system, like if you want comfortable, you are comfortable with electrical system, you consider the current or charge in a LCR circuit. If you are comfortable with radioactive decay, you consider that. So whatever you are trying to understand and you are trying to predict its time evolution, you identify the relevant variables first. Okay, so once you identify the relevant variable, for like LCR circuit, the charge or the current is the relevant variable. If you are talking about radioactive decay, then there is something else is the relevant variable. So identify that and let us call that variable as X. Okay? And then try to write down a differential equation in first order that works as this, Tx dt. That means per unit time. So X can change in two ways. X can either increase or X can either decrease. That is how X can change, right? So we try to figure out that how X increases, and we jot them down together. I have written it down as a function fx. There could be many functions, f1, f2, f3. X could be increasing in different ways. And similarly, there could be different ways by which x is decreasing. So we jot all those functions together and we call them gx. So this way you write down a differential equation trying to understand the inflow and the outflow of a particular box. If x is your box, how much, what are the ways that it is increasing and what are the ways that it is decreasing. So you write down kind of a flow equation, dx dt. And then you can analyze that equation in both ways. First, you can equate this dx dt to 0 and see that when the time evolution stops, that we call steady state. If there is a steady state where there is no time evolution, then what is the behavior of the system at that time? That is one way to look at it. The other way to look at it would be looking at the time evolution itself. So you solve the differential equation as a whole and you figure out what x is as a function of time. So these are the two ways that you can do. Okay, so this is the basic fundamental way to understand any dynamical system using differential equations. Now you will say that, okay, if there is only one variable, that is fine. But in epidemic, there are multiple variables, multiple things are affecting each other. So that simply means that instead of one, I will have multiple equations and these all equations can be coupled. So if you have n such quantities that are affecting each other, there are an interplay between n such quantities, then you have n coupled differential equations of first order. You can solve them with time. You can also solve them in steady state to look at different behaviors of the system. So this is the fundamental way of understanding complex systems, multidimensional, multivariable complex systems using first order differential equations. So I guess this part is clear. So I am moving on to the particular case of epidemic modeling. So in epidemic modeling, I guess by this time, because we are all looking at different newses all the time, we more or less are familiar with these terms, but still I quickly introduce these terms. For epidemic modeling, we use some terminology. So here, to understand epidemic, usually all the people who can get infected, we call them susceptible and we denote them by S. Susceptible to the disease. Infectious is the people who are infected or they can infect others. We denote them by I, capital I. And recovered are the people who got recovered. So they have now immunity to the disease, they have recovered from the disease, okay? Now there could be some subclinical latent infections kind of a thing where people got exposed to the virus, but they are not showing any symptoms, no prominent disease present in them. So whenever in a population I have a non-zero amount of infectious people, that system can result into an endemic state if the disease is highly contagious. So that state we call endemic state, where you have a sufficient percentage of infectious people present. So these are just the terminology that we are going to follow. So now let us think about the differential equations of such a system. This is the simplest model that is being used all around the world nowadays to understand COVID-19. This is called SIR model. So what are the boxes? We talked about a box, right? X, inflow and outflow. Let us write this kind of a simple, chalk out the simple plan of the flow of the dynamics. So here I have susceptible people. Suppose I have a country where many people are there who can all get infected, right? And then I place 1 or 2 infectious people there. So from susceptible, they can get infected at a rate beta if they meet someone who is infected. Okay, so this beta is the rate, but you have to meet someone who is infected to get infected. Thus, you become from susceptible to infectious. So this next box is infected. So from infected, you get recovered on your own because it takes some time, maybe some medical support as well. You can get recovered with the rate gamma. So this is not dependent on meeting someone, right? This is just gradually happens over time. You get recovered from the disease, and it is not through the influence. It is not through the influence of any other boxes. So SIR are the 3 boxes. So let us now try to understand that susceptible becomes infectious if they meet an infected people at a rate beta. Infectious recovers over a time frame with a probability of gamma. So if I want to write down the differential equations of this, how many equations will I have? 3. Because instead of X, now I have S, I and R, and they are all coupled with each other. So I will have equations like this. So In a constant population, suppose I have a constant population where this dynamics is happening, no one is coming in, no one is coming out of the country or the population that I am considering, then these are the equations. Let us just look into the equation and try to understand what is happening. ds dt, how s is changing? S cannot increase, right? There is no inward arrow towards x, only an outgoing arrow, right? S can only decrease. So fx there, the equation that I discussed with you, there is no fx. There is no way x can increase, but x can decrease. S can decrease if the susceptible becomes infectious. So minus beta s times I. So a susceptible meets an infectious. Both the numbers play their role. With a rate beta, it gets transferred to an infected state. Next comes the infected equation. Infecteds can increase or decrease. How they will increase? If the susceptible becomes infected, then the infected's number will increase. So this is the term, the same term, because the people who come out of this box, they only go into this box. So this is the inward flow. This is the outward flow. And this does not depend on meeting anybody. Over time, it happens, just like radioactive decay. It happens on its own. Okay. Next, you have the recovered. The recovered only increases because the infected get recovered. So this is kind of a simple dynamic, simplest way I would say, oversimplification might be, of dynamics that can explain the epidemic that is happening. So here I am considering some assumptions. I'm considering that the total population is fixed and that is equal to n. And the variables are 3, S, I, R. They are all number of people. That is why they cannot be negative or so that is why they have to be real positive numbers. And the parameters also are rates of infection. They are also real positive. So this is the simplest possible way of writing down an epidemic in form of equations. Okay. So what happens if I study these dynamics? I try to solve these differential equations. If I try to solve them, what happens? So over time, if I solve them, you will get a solution like this, coupled differential equation. And it suits. If you look, what is happening to the susceptible population is decreasing, right? So the people who can get infected, they are only decreasing. So it is falling down and then saturating at a particular point. Infectious people, it's rising and then falling down. And recovered people are increasing steadily. So let us just focus on the infectious people. If you look, if you open the worldometer where there is a continuous count of what is happening, how many active cases are there in every country, you will see a bell-shaped curve where the epidemic is over. For example, like China, where the first wave is over, or South Korea or Japan, or countries where the first wave of the epidemic is over, you will see a bell-shaped curve like this. And this bell-shaped curve is basically a result of something like this kind of a dynamics. Okay, maybe this is a very crude way to look at it, but this is kind of what is happening. So infectious people are meeting susceptible people, and the number of susceptible people are continuously decreasing. So this is the time evolution of the dynamics that we are seeing. So here, let me just quickly talk about this quantity. It is called basic reproduction number R0. This simply tells you R0 basically is a popular number nowadays in COVID-19. We refer to this all the time because it tells you that in the time when one person is infected, in the lifetime of the disease, how many other person he can infect. So that means that if one person is infected, how many other person it can get infected from that person. So if that is greater than 1, then I will have a pandemic, right? So one person will recover, and instead of the 1, I will have 2 or 3 or 5 more persons who are becoming infectious in that time. So this is called basic reproduction number. And in case of SIR model, the model that we just discussed, it comes out to be beta by gamma. It is obvious because beta is the rate at which infected people are increasing and gamma is the rate at which infectious people are decreasing. So the ratio will tell you that this pandemic is going to stay or it is going to get over. So SIR is not the only framework. Depending on the dynamics of the system, you can have different kinds of frameworks. So SIS is another popular framework where you have a constant switching between susceptible and infected people. Susceptible get infected and infected becomes susceptible again. So diseases where you cannot get immune about, there also you can write the differential equations in the same way. There are other frameworks as well, like SIRS. If after some time you get, you become susceptible to the disease again, you don't get immune, you get recovered, but after some time you can again become susceptible. So that can be one kind of model. So there are different kind of models that can be used, and the model flexibility is completely on your own hand. So you can make the model on your own to understand the epidemic dynamics. For example, this is a modified model which is being mostly followed to understand COVID dynamics. Here I have 5 states: susceptible, exposed. Exposed means they are not seeing any symptoms, but they can infect. Then infected, the red box I. Exposed is the green box, this one. Then infected who are showing symptoms. Then quarantined, some of the infectious people are getting quarantined. They cannot infect other people anymore. They are supposed to stay at home. They are supposed to stay at hospital quarantine facilities, and they cannot infect others. And they finally get recovered. So here you can simply count how many parameters are there. And here instead of 3, you will have 5 differential equations which are coupled. So this way you can basically try to add components in your model and make your model more and more flexible towards the dynamics that you want to observe. So SEIQR, this is the best model right now that can make you understand that what is happening in case of COVID-19, if you want to understand it in terms of differential equations. So this is a small simulation that we did on this kind of a model, and I'm showing you this. So this is this model. I wrote down the differential equation and I solved them. So instead of 3, I will have 5 curves: S, E, I, Q, and R. Right? So you can see that how the different things are changing. So if I ask you that, look at this, the first figure and the second figure, and try, these are the same dynamics for different values of the parameters. So what are the things that are different here? If you try to see what are the things that are different in these 2 figures. In the first figure, this blue curve, that is the susceptible one, it is saturating at a value, right? That means there are some people who are not even coming in contact with the disease. They are safe. They are not in coming of contact of the disease. Okay. A fraction of people are getting infected, exposed, and then quarantined, and finally they are recovering or they are dying, which we have not considered in this model. But a fraction of the recovered or removed people are also death fraction is also included there. But in the first dynamics and the second dynamics, you can see that the susceptible number is still quite at large. So some people are completely untouched by the disease. How this can happen? This can happen. So what parameter do you think actually controls this? The exposure parameter, how much you come in contact with the infected or the exposed people, right? So if you decrease that contact rate very small values, this change can occur. So that is why social distancing. That is why we ask for staying at home, or these kind of strategies come out from this kind of simulations only. Okay, so this is kind of a real data from one of the countries. And here you can already see the bell shape emerging. It is still ongoing. So the bell shape is not yet complete. So how do you control this epidemic? You can have different strategies, right? The first strategy would be vaccine. Everyone is looking for vaccine of COVID-19. Why? Because once you vaccinate someone, that person is not even susceptible to the disease. So the disease cannot actually attack that person. You can get exposed, but you are not susceptible to the disease. So that means reducing the fraction ST, that is vaccination. Reducing beta or epsilon. So you go back and I just show you, this beta and epsilon are the contact rates. Contact rates to the exposed and infected people. This is how you get infected, right? So reducing beta or epsilon means you isolate sick persons, you shut down public events, close schools, you wash hands. These are the ways that you come less in contact with the people who are infected. So this is the lockdown strategy, reducing beta or epsilon. And finally, reducing kappa is the testing kits. So if you increase the testing rates, you can quickly identify those people who are infected, who are can infect further, can spread the infection further, and you can have them isolated. So that is basically the quarantining rate or the testing facility. So you will say that these are kind of obvious, right? We can understand that vaccination will reduce, washing hands will reduce, social distancing will reduce the chances or the probabilities. So why do we write down these kind of equations and understand this? Because this tells you that why you are, what is the place where you are lacking. So if you have a graph, a bell-shaped curve like this actually can tell you that this particular parameter for you is not good. You should focus on that. Okay, so this is how you model things to understand. But because here you have already wrote down the equations, you can choose whatever the values of parameters you like. You can basically fit these curves, and you can see that what are the parameters that are controlling the dynamics in your case. Okay, but so whatever we have discussed so far are on ordinary differential equations, and it is one approach of understanding the modeling dynamics. All around the world, people are trying different versions of this only. And you can have a look at papers, and I think you will be able to understand the basic idea behind it now. But ordinary differential equations are just one approach of modeling these systems. And the reasons behind this is the limitations of this approach. Because if you just think about it, that in this approach, what am I getting? I'm getting the percentage of people or the number of people who are susceptible, who are infected or quarantined, the total number, right? How many people are infected? How many people will be infected? Something like that. But it is completely silent on the questions like who is likely to be infected? Who is the critical person whom you should remove from the population? So there is no individuality in them. When you are writing down the equation, you are considering the total number of the population. While in the physical case, you really cannot meet someone from Delhi and get sick, right? So you need a spatial information, the local information, who are in your neighborhood, how much you are moving, you as a person, how much you are moving or how much you are, your particular individuality, your particular neighborhood, that information is not here. This is called homogeneous mixing in language of complexity science. So this simply means that the population, you are considering it as a solution, as if it's well mixed, okay, which is not true. We have a structure of meeting people. We have a structure of clustering. Some localities are highly dense, some localities are not. So individuality or local information is completely missing here, which is a major drawback of ODE approaches. So let us relax these approaches and let us consider this neighborhood information. Moreover, while we writing the differential equations, we are not considering any probabilities. Let us consider these probabilities that if you meet some infected person, then also there is a probability that you cannot get sick. That can always happen, right? Depends on your immunity. So this kind of probabilities should be inserted in the picture. So let us consider, take one step further and let us look at a more complex kind of models which are considering this stochasticity and the neighborhood information. So the first modeling strategy that comes here is called lattice models. So lattice models are, I think, simply understandable by physics students. So I'll quickly tell you what it is. Here you consider a 2D matrix, okay, a 2D matrix where at each point you consider, or each box you consider one person is sitting or the box is vacant. So you can see a patch here. Here I have like 10,000 points where all the neighborhood boxes are either filled or empty. So filled box means someone is there, empty boxes, someone is not there. Okay. So this is kind of the local information that I have. So who is neighbor to whom? Something like that. You can choose your neighborhood on your own. You can choose 8 neighbors, like nearest neighbors. You can also follow the nearest neighbor principles. You can also increase the neighborhood depending on that. What do you think the range of movement of people? You can choose that and you can model your system. So what will be the modeling strategy? The modeling strategy in the best way could be that you capture, now we have all these satellite images, right? So you have the satellite images of these places where you know how the buildings are there, who are neighbor to whom. We can map this system on a lattice model, isn't it? We can map this system on a lattice model and we can see how disease propagates from there. So this satellite picture similarly with the lattice picture that we usually have in our mind, where some boxes are filled and some boxes are empty. So wherever a filled box is, there is a house. Wherever an empty box is, there is a road or a playground or something like that. And then you study the time evolution based on some rules. You consider that if a box is there and it has 8 neighbors around them, if a fraction of them are infected, then what is the probability of that person meeting each and every one of them, and what is the probability that the person gets sick after all? Okay, so this way you don't write any equations, you simulate. You write computer codes and you try to understand that what happens over time if one box is surrounded by some people. You consider some upstream and some downstreams, and you consider the spin flip occurs if enough number of neighbors are on one side, right? It is something like that. So here we have a picture of a time evolution which we have studied. This is on ACIQR kind of a system only, but not in terms of equation, in terms of the dynamical rules, which I have just described. That. Box with same number of small patches present there, but the population is scattered. That means it is less dense. So you can see the infection. First, all the blocks were blue. That means everyone is susceptible, and I place randomly some infected people, and I see how the disease propagates. Okay, this is the propagation of the disease. You get exposed, and then finally you get infected. So you can clearly see that if the population is dense, then the probability of getting infected increases very, very high. So that means in countries like India, the strategies that we are taking cannot be similar with the countries like Canada, where the population density is very, very less. Okay. Let us move on to the next one. Here, I have simulated that what happens if you move a lot. So D is equal to 1 means just the 8 neighbors around you. D is equal to 2 means the next level neighbors, something like that. So if you move a lot and you don't obey the lockdown, what happens? So in the first figure, video, persons are only interacting with the people around them. On the other hand, the second one, it is just the next nearest neighbors of them. So you can consider that it is like moving inside your own locality and going to the locality beside. It's something like that only. Okay. So this is how much difference it can create if you don't obey the rules. So this is D is equal to 1 when you only interact with people around you, and this is D is equal to 2 when you move around a little bit. So this is the drastic behavior. It's not linear, you can see. It is basically an exponential kind of change with the neighborhood consideration. So this way, using lattice models also, you can understand the dynamics. Let us move on to one level further and talk about network models. So this is the third way that the third strategy to understand it. Networks are basically known to us nowadays. It simply means that who is connected to whom. So it is kind of a more generalized version of the lattice. In lattice, you restrict yourself that one person can only have 8 neighbors. In network, you have no such restriction. So you can consider that I am a node of a network, a ball, okay, and you are another one. And if we are friends, we draw a line between them. This way, you can make networks of anything, okay, social network, who is friend with whom, okay, collaboration network, who writes paper with whom, who works with, who is whose research collaborator, something like that. Or maybe friendship network, contact network, anything, any network you can create. It will be just some nodes connected by some lines. Here, the difference from the lattice model is one can have any number of neighbors, okay? One can have 100, 10,000 neighbors, doesn't matter. And another beautiful part is that these real networks are, this data is available online nowadays. You can actually figure out that who is friends with whom and so on. So here in network, we call these blobs as nodes and the lines that I mentioned as edges. So edge is the line that connects the two nodes. And this is how we make a network. We represent networks using a matrix, which is called adjacency matrix. So adjacency matrix is simply like a matrix where you have the node numbers here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, because in this graph, this network, I only have 6 nodes. Now I will put a 1 wherever they are connected. If they're friends, I'll put a 1 there. So suppose 1 is a friend with 2. So 1 is a friend with 2, I put 1 here. And 2 is also a friend with 1, so I put a 1 here also. Okay. So this way I make an adjacency matrix. If it is something like that, that 1 is friends with 2, but 2 is not a friend with 1, then that kind of networks we call directed networks. So it has a direction. So the information flow is from one way. It can only flow from one side. On the other side, nothing flows, something like that. This is kind of the Twitter followers. You follow someone, but he does not follow you back, something like that. Okay. So you can make a huge matrix like this, depending on how many nodes you are considering. This is a very popular representation, adjacency matrix for networks. So what we do here is this. We take these networks and we transform the equations that we wrote before, like SIR model. Now we transform these equations in terms of these networks, considering the strength of each node, because everyone does not have the same strength, right? That means, think of it in terms of information diffusion. So suppose one person who is very important, if he shares an information, there is a very high probability that he will share the information to everyone and it will flow very fast. Similarly, in case of infectious diseases, one person has a very high contact rate. Suppose a bus conductor who meets lots of people in one day. If he gets infected, he can become a node, a very strong node who can spread the information very fast. So we take that into account, and this small k subscript that you see here, that actually measures that the strength of that network, how much the information it can spread or the infection it can spread. So this adds an individuality to the node that was missing in the previous equations. So all the nodes don't have equal strength of spreading the infection. Thus, we write the equation same way, but considering the degree of each of these nodes, and we try to solve this over time. So we simulate this, we solve it numerically, and we solve it over time. Okay. So here is a example of how this flows. So I have a network where the diffusion is occurring. So if you see this is a network of say 50 nodes. Okay. And let us consider one node lying at the end like this. If this person gets infected, the flow of the disease will not be this fast. On the other hand, if this person who is connected to so many people gets infected, immediately after, lots of people get infected, right? So this adds kind of an individuality when you label these nodes, and there is no such restriction or boundary on how many neighbors one can have. Okay. So this is the study of epidemics on a network. Now, these are some real networks. Real networks means I told you, these informations are available online nowadays. Email networks of an university, collaboration networks between jazz musicians, between actors, friendship networks of Facebook, a huge network, friendship network of Facebook. These networks you can download. These real networks have a very specific property which are different from networks that you make using simulations. So we can take these real networks and we can drive our dynamics, whatever dynamics we think the model, on these network structures. So we can consider different colors for different nodes. Suppose greens are susceptible, reds are exposed or infected, gray are quarantined and or recovered, and the blue lines, the faint blue lines are the links. You take a huge network of 10,000 or 15,000 people, consider the individuality of each node, and you drive your dynamics there. Follow some probabilistic rules. Think that if one person is infected and a percentage of his neighbors are infected, he can get infected, something like that, and you drive the dynamics there. So here is a time variation of that. We considered a network of 10,500 nodes, and only 6 people were infected at the very first. T is equal to 0. Then T is equal to 6, 11, 400. You can see how drastically the number has changed of the red dots. So red dots are the infected or the exposed people. We started, the initial fraction was 2%. The final percentage was 40%. That is the steady state. So this is how the endemic spreads. And this is only for R of 1.66. I told you that reproduction number means in a lifetime how many other people you can infect. It is not even 2. It is less than 2. So one person can infect 1.66, that is kind of a fraction. If you normalize it to higher numbers, it will come down to a number of people in a particular lifetime. On this average, this drives and reaches a final state where you have 40% infected people. These are some results of lattice model, and these are all real data. So this data is collected from all the countries where the pandemic is ongoing, COVID-19 pandemic is ongoing, starting from Australia to Tunisia. We have simulated and fitted this using a lattice model. This is an publication being processed right now. So I'm still sharing the data with you. So these are the fittings on a lattice model where we can consider the population density, the clustering, the initial infected number, the total number of population, and you can run the computer code to see that what happened there. And you can also learn lessons from them. You can say that where they did wrong. From there, you can devise your own strategies and you can predict that what you should do to control the epidemic when you are at the exponential phase of the dynamics. For example, here, what we did is, for Israel and Switzerland, we know that the epidemic is almost over there, but we still assumed that the data is not complete for us. Okay, so we took the data up to a certain level, like these filled blue points are the data that we considered. And we told our model to fit the data and predict that what will happen afterwards. So it fitted, and the black dashed curve is actually the fitting with the curtailed data, not the entire data. Okay, so that means this model actually can predict quite closely that what would have happened to the country if I use this model to understand what can happen to the country at a 50th or 40th day of the dynamics. Similarly, for Switzerland also, you can see that the fitting that we get with the truncated data set actually is a quite good approximation of what actually happened to the dynamics of the country. So this can actually act as a predictive model, and this can also tell you the necessary steps that you need to take to overcome whatever is happening to you. If you want to control that, what are the best strategies that you can take? Just a quick overview of what we can do further. You can consider on top of this several different things. You can consider that people start avoiding people who are infected and new friendships build up. That means your network is changing continuously with time. You can consider that. You can consider that on the network, some people are very rigid and they don't obey any rules. That always happens, right? So they are like against social distancing. So you can actually attribute these properties to them, that some move a lot and some don't. Okay, you can divide them and put them inside your simulation. I'm just trying to tell you that how flexible these models can be. You can add a delayed vaccination and see that what can happen. And what are the interventions that you can do? Depending on the results that you get, you can remove the high degree nodes that I already told you, the ones that have many edges connected to them. You can remove them immediately. You can quarantine those people who are coming in contact with people. That will automatically control the spread of the epidemic. You can do contact tracing. What is Arogya Setu is trying to do, right? Who met whom? Try to build a network of that so that you can easily trace on time that who actually is more prone to get infected, something like that. The interesting part here, though on a different note, is that not only viruses flow like this, several things flow like this. And this is a very flexible tool if you want to learn this, because an idea can flow like an opinion on a global issue. Habits flow, we know, like smoking, right? People learn that from their friends only. Information flow, scientific theory flows, rumor, news, trends like online shopping, political campaigns, everything flows on social network nowadays. We call them social epidemics. And these are happening all around the world. We have several publications on this kind of social epidemics as well. So not only virus, but different things can flow. And if you can learn these techniques that we mentioned, like differential equation, lattice model, and network models, they give you this huge flexibility to understand all these complex processes, which actually involve a collective decision making by various people. So are there other ways? Sure, but we don't have enough time to talk about them. For example, Brownian motion, something very much known to us as physics students. You can simulate Brownian motion and you can consider infection spreading like that way. This is one of our simulations where we have considered that if you collide with one ball, you can get infected with a certain probability. So on the left side, you can see a dynamics where people are getting infected with some probability if they meet someone. On the other one, the next one, on the right side, we considered a persistent infection that can be considered as a fomite. That means suppose you have sneezed on a seat and you are infected and you move from there and someone else sits there, he can also get infected. This is a kind of persistent contamination that you are doing. So what we did is just we associated a tail with that space. So whenever the person moves through a space, he as if leaves behind some viruses. And someone crossing that tail can also get infected with some probability. This is another way, right? So this way you can actually take concepts from physics like flipping of spins or Brownian motion and map them to problems much complex to understand what is happening there. So on a quick note, I will just tell you the take-home messages from my talk. So what we learned today is differential equations can be a good tool to understand and model epidemic. We also learned that one of the ways of relaxing the assumptions of homogeneous mixing and taking into account of the individuality are the lattice models. One of the major benefits of lattice models, it is simple. It is computationally quite light. You don't need a very big computer to simulate these lattice models, and it is very flexible. This is the benefit of lattice model. Another way to do this relax these assumptions would be network models, which are much more flexible, but maybe computationally a bit more, it is exhaustive, computationally a bit exhaustive. You can collect real data and figure out contact tracing and figure out what is the real network on which the network is going on, and you can solve, write down the equations and you can solve. And finally, I tried to give you a glimpse of the versatility of these tools and the huge spectrum of future scopes that can come if you want to pursue on these lines. So these are some very good starting points. These are some very good books. Stephen Stoddard's Nonlinear Dynamics, it's kind of a landmark book. Introduction to Networks by Newman, and also some references which you can have a look. This is one of the publications that I told our publications on marketing strategy flow on social networks. We also have a recent publication on Nature Publishing Group scientific reports based on this. So you can have a look, you can start from any point. And if you are confused, if you want to know anything, you can surely mail me anytime. This is my mail ID. This is my ResearchGate site. You can have a look on the works that we are doing right now. And here is a blog for everyone that we are writing on epidemiology. It is also in Bangla, so you can have a look and you can share with anyone who is interested in this topic. So I stop here and maybe some questions now.
Thank you, Shantari, for your nice deliberation and very good complex ideas exposed to the students. Now I request Dr. Asim Kumar Mukherjee, who is the moderator of this session, to conclude the session. Dr. Asim Kumar Mukherjee, please.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, Asimda, you are audible.
Do you hear me? Do you hear me?
Yes, you are audible. Please proceed.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes. It's a great pleasure to me to offer vote of thanks to our student, Dr. Sayantari Ghosh, who is now the Assistant Professor of NIT Durgapur, for delivering a very relevant and interesting topic in a very lucid and simple manner. Since there is no question, but I like to ask a silly question to Sayantari,
Yes,
that how the lockdown will affect your calculations.
Yes, sir. So I actually have those simulation, but I haven't put it in the slides because of this. So basically all these simulations, for example, in lattice models, you can choose the neighborhoods accordingly, that how many people you interact with. So first level of layers would be like equal to 1, 2, 3, 4. You increase that, and that means you are interacting with all of them, and there is no lockdown. One thing you can also do is that you can mix the population after some time. That means that once the infection is little bit spread, so the lockdown was there, infection was restricted, then you open it, then you start the population. So that means you place the infected people in random locations again. So anyone can travel. So suppose some exposed people who are not yet symptomatic, they travel and then they get symptoms and they can infect people on the way. So that will change. And what we have seen is there is a sudden jump in the infection level. So as the lockdown has been removed in our country, I am quite afraid to see that what might come, because these are like difficult times, and maybe people should be a little bit more careful about whatever is going on. Lockdowns are necessary, and social distancing is very, very necessary. So,
Anthony,
Hello.
here is a question from Soumudi Borman.
yes, yes.
He asked, is incubation period is taken under consideration?
Yes. So what we considered is that being exposed to being infected. So we call it infected if symptoms are being shown. That means there is a probability that people can know that you are, if you are coughing and sneezing, or you have temperature, even you can know that you are getting some possibilities. But if you are exposed and no symptoms are there, we consider that to be the exposed state. So exposed to infected, we took a time and we took an average for once for Asian countries and once for all over the world. It comes around between 2 to 14 days. So for some countries it's very low, and for some countries it is quite high. That has been taken into account while doing the fitting. I showed you some fittings now. So the curves of all those countries from Australia to, let me just quickly go back. So that this one here, when we fitted that, we considered that for each country, the incubation period was different, the quarantine facility was different, quarantine time was different, that how fast they are, some countries took the strategy of aggressive testing. So that means very fast quarantining. That has been taken into account here.
Okay, thank you. Audience, if you have any questions, you may write in the chat box, or you may raise hand to ask questions.
I had a question, Obhi Ghosh.
Yes, yes, proceed.
So how is the situation looking for India currently? Is there an answer for it?
Yeah, the thing is that actually I deliberately have not put the fitting for India here because that might give a wrong message. But my estimations, whatever we did, estimations are it is going to stay for a while, and maybe I can show you the because I thought someone would surely ask it, but I deliberately didn't put. So this is the Indian data. Up till yesterday, I have did the simulations. So the blue data, as you can see, is India growing steadily. And if we consider like all around the world, we did our calculations for almost 40, 45 countries.
Okay.
So if we consider the fastest testing facility at the fastest quarantine rate, then the yellow graph is there. Okay. The yellow graph.
Okay.
But if we consider the average behavior and the best fit of this data and average behavior of the Asian countries, then the dashed graph is there. So that means dashed graph goes up to 300 days.
Oh, okay. Almost a year. Okay.
Almost a year, yes. And if we consider the worst case, that is the red graph.
I see. Thank you. Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, yes.
Do you think that some people who are asymptomatic need not take any treatment, but usually he is recovered from that virus infection without taking any treatment? Do you think so in India?
Yes, this can happen because in Asian countries, what we have seen, statistically speaking, what we have seen is that the recovery rate is, good, yes. And the exposure probability is also less. That means if you get exposed, possibility that you will show symptoms, that is also less. So it can happen, and that is a good and bad and the same picture, because that means that some people are getting cured on their own and you don't need to provide them health facilities, but these people are roaming around all of us and we don't really know
Because
who
infection
are.
burden is very large for those people who are
Yes.
asymptomatic.
So best way is to avoid crowded places. That is the best way.
Hello, this is Shantari.
Yes.
I have a question also.
Yes, sure.
When equilibrium comes in this type of dynamics, or any or not?
So, I mean, in epidemic dynamics?
Epidemic dynamics, yes.
Yes, so if you equate all the equations to 0 and you figured out the solutions, this will give you the steady state dynamics, that is the equilibrium. Okay, so
That
if
means R equal to 1.66.
no, R is dependent on parameters. R can change. For different values of R, you can have different equilibriums. So
Hello.
if R is, hello, am I audible?
Yeah,
Yes.
So if R is less than 1, then we will always have a scenario where infection will die out eventually. Eventually means within a very short time, it will not become an endemic like this one. So if R is greater than 1, then only it can become an endemic. That means one person can create 2 or 3 or 4 persons. So R is basically dependent on the transmission probabilities. Okay, and the epidemic state, the steady state can be 2 times. One is two ways. One is when everyone remains susceptible and the infection dies out. Another one is the current situation. So this is a steady state that we are having right now. This steady state means we have infection all around. So that we called equilibrium of disease free state and equilibrium of endemic state. So we are having an endemic state right now. So this is an equilibrium only, but over time it will saturate and over time it will come down to 0.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
Hello.
Hello, Shantari.
Ah,
There is one question from Debojyoti De.
yes, sure.
He asked, does the demographics, climates, and such factors of particular places affect the curves of countries?
Actually, these could be taken care into account through the demography. So suppose the original death rate, birth rate, the probabilities that can take into account of that. So mostly we have seen that depending on the continents, this differs a lot. Like in African countries, one of the trends can be shown. In European countries, one of the trends could be shown. You can cluster them out depending on the parameter values. It automatically gets clustered. So that actually relates to the question because maybe they are related to the climates and things like that, what you are suggesting.
Oh, thank you. There is one question. That what is the Subhadeep Mondal asked? What is the role of the test rate? Test rate.
This is huge. This is huge contribution because the curves that I have shown you now, this Indian curves, this actually depends on test rates because it seems if you test the thing that we can all understand that if you test at a vigorous rate, it will seem that your infection is increasing. But if you don't test at a vigorous rate, it will seem that you are at a good place, but you are not. And that basically can result into that red curve.
Yes.
Hello.
Okay. Let us conclude this session because it is a time-bound
Okay,
program.
ma'am. Thank you.
Always mail
Hello.
me. If you have any question, you can mail me. No problem.
Lastly, I again like to thank. Hello.
Yes. Asundar, please.
Yeah, let us conclude this session because it is a time-bound program. So there will be many questions because Shantari has explained the whole phenomena very simply. So it is very understandable, and everybody has enjoyed one very much. I express my sincere thanks on behalf of the organizing committee to Dr. Shantari Ghosh, and I hope that we will get her amid us in near future also.